when abuse happens in the church, the first question is rarely what happened. It's usually who's you're covering. And that question tells you everything you need to know. We're talking about church abuse next on The Kingdom Order.
Are you ready to rise and shine? Unlock your purpose. It's your time. So stand tall. Embrace your calling. Give it your all. Conversations that lift and inspire. Leadership, faith, and gifts from above. Walking in truth, in power and love. Teach, man, teach. We rise as one. Walk with authority. It's just begun.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Kingdom Order. I'm Dr. Kevin,
And I'm Dr. DeWeylla.
and today we are coming with you with part 9, the last part of this series of We Called It Church. We were talking about the covering doctrine and spiritual
Yes.
abuse.
It is our last part 9 of this journey that we've gone on together regarding what we called church. What we
Yeah.
once called church, what some of you may still call church. But a lot of the things that we've exposed in the past 8 parts are things that we went to church, we knew about, we knew of, we saw, we participated
Yep.
in, and thought that, oh, this is just how we do things. This is just the way
It's the way
church is
it's, the
supposed
way
to
it's
be.
done.
Yeah. But realizing that it had nothing to do with our faith, it had nothing to do with the Bible. Many of the things that we practiced were opposite of what the word said
Yep.
and of what Yah commanded of us to do. Matter of fact, in many cases, he told us to stay away from, but we just did the opposite and called it church.
Yeah.
Oh, we had good church today,
Mm.
right?
Oh, we sure had some church today. It was
Yeah.
foot stomping church.
Foot stomping, doing the circle dance rituals that we
Yeah.
did, the impartations that we did, the manifestation of having the Holy Ghost or the Holy Spirit, something that you could catch.
Catch the Holy Ghost.
Yeah, and all of these things. And then we just talked about the previous 2 episodes about the whole skit that Drewski did, which was a
Yep.
good segue for us to be able to bring out the word of faith doctrine
Oh, yeah.
and the spirit of
That was a good one
mammon
there.
coming into the pulpit. Now we want to close out. We've talked about this subject before, but if you're somebody who just joined, maybe you don't want to go all the way back to
Season 1.
season 1 when we talked about it. I think we might have talked about it in denominational damage.
Sure did.
But we're going to talk about it again. We're going to close out this segment of We Called It Church with talking about the covering doctrine.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to title this, well, you know what? We will just go ahead and title this Covering or Control.
Well,
Covering or Control.
yeah, that's fitting.
That is what we want to talk about in this segment. And the covering doctrine and spiritual abuse going hand in hand, because it's not so much of a covering as it is control, because what I have known to happen in these circles, in these communities, is that once you acknowledge this person or these people as your covering, it's almost kind of like if you don't do what they say, you're ostracized. You're out of the club. You're out of the clique. You're not a part. They cover you, but now you just being rebellious because you're not doing what this covering says in the way and manner in which they want you to do it. Not in the way
Wow.
that the Father has maybe instructed you to do it.
Right. Wow.
But that's what it becomes about. What do you think? What is your take
I agree
on
with
that?
you on that. It's one of these things where, of course, I was abused spiritually, and it's not a good feeling and stuff when you realize that. And it's one of those things that I think even since we've been married, we've counseled some people who have been spiritually abused in ministries by their pastors of all people and stuff, or associate pastors, and a lot of it has to do with that control and stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the main root of a lot of the ones that we've seen was rooted in control or conforming to an ideal or a belief system that's not truly biblical whatsoever and stuff. And when you get to a place where you're like that and you wake up and you realize, wait a minute, why are you asking me to do this? Like, it's like, no, wait a minute, something's wrong with that. And then you start looking and it's like, yep, it's part of that control thing that a lot of leaders have that are not, it's not biblical and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And name me one of the disciples, one of the prophets, one of the apostles that had a covering in the Bible. We'll be waiting here all
Yeah,
day.
we'll be waiting all day on that one and stuff. Well, you know, the 12 disciples, they had Jesus and stuff. True. That if you want to call that part, you
Right.
could do that and stuff.
But the covering is only the Most High. The covering can only be Yahuwah. He's the one that created this whole earth.
Yeah.
He's the one that put the bow in the sky. He's
Even
the one
Mashiach
that
said, "Your Father in heaven."
yeah,
You know, so that means he was like a brother.
yeah. To be really literal, our covering is the expanse of the firmament.
Yeah.
He made the cover. This is the dome in which protects us from whatever else is out there in the universe. That is our covering. Is what human, another human being cannot cover a human being. I'm
Right.
sorry.
He sure came.
You can lift them up in prayer. You can say that you're going
Intercede
to
on their behalf.
intercede on their behalf. You're going to be their accountability partner. But at the end of the day, are you the one that's actually going to physically be able to stop them from them dying in a car accident?
Can
Are
you get
the
them
one,
to heaven, or are you gonna send them to hell?
Come on. Are you the one that's going to be able to physically control these things? You cannot.
Not.
You cannot.
Nope.
So that's why the covering doctrine, it sets a dangerous precedent for especially the babe in Christ, the baby believer in Mashiach that thinks that, oh, I'm going to go to my spiritual father and spiritual mother for everything I need and I'm good, I'm covered.
Right. Man,
Right?
that's crazy.
So the big lie, what covering was taught to be, the spiritual covering equals protection, blessing, and safety. But in reality, it became a system of control, silence, and fear. When covering replaces accountability, abuse becomes spiritualized.
Wow. That's a real thing.
Yeah.
That's a really real thing, because I think when we look at this thing, probably like accountable, it's like, we go back to the last one, we talked about the mega church thing, right? With Drewski and stuff. When you have a church of that size and you say, well, so-and-so is my pastor, my covering and stuff, does he know your name?
Right.
I mean, are you in leadership to the point, he might know your name if you're in leadership,
Yeah.
but are you like a faithful giver, faithful tither and stuff that he actually knows you, he can pick up the phone and call you directly?
Right.
Is he that kind of covering? I'm pretty sure he doesn't know your name and stuff like that, because it's just another number and stuff. So you're accountable to no one at that point. And, you know, what do you do at that point?
Yeah.
It's like,
and it also goes back to that prosperity gospel where somebody has made your covering because you gave a certain amount of money.
right.
That happens as well. It's
That
like
happens,
that now.
yeah.
It's a transactional thing again. Instead of it being an accountability thing, it's a transactional thing where it's like, oh man, this is a big donor, a big person that gives me large seeds of money. Yeah, I'm gonna say that I'm gonna be their covering.
I had a friend about 9 years ago, actually, that was a pastor, local pastor here, was the quote unquote their covering and stuff. But he never came to the anniversary. But he was a covering and stuff. And the one thing that got turned me off with it was the fact that I went to one of his services and he said something like, if I'm supposed to be your covering, you're supposed to sow into me monthly. And I'm like,
What?
wait a minute, hold up. I was like, big red flags was going off at that point. It's like, so if you're supposed to be my covering, and you saying in order for you to have that position of my covering, even when I tell people you my covering, you only gonna say you my cover. I'm your covering if you sow into me every month.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, then I'm not covering you.
Yeah.
What kind? And that's that northern. They from up north. You know, the northerners that do that crazy stuff. And it's like, to me, that was the most wicked thing I've ever heard anyone say.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna cover you if you pay into me monthly.
Right. Which is why there's no human being that can actually be a covering but Yah. The Most High Yah doesn't put those kind of stipulations on.
Sure doesn't.
He has a covenant. Okay. And the covenant agreement is basically you need to be doing the things that the covenant says to do. You need to be obeying. You need to be observing the Sabbath. You need to be obeying, the laws that he put in place. And the true covering is saying, okay, this is my safety and protection for you, and that you will be a part of the kingdom of Yah. But these people have twisted the scripture in a way to say that they are almost like the Most High, these pastors and preachers, And that's where the control, the silence,
Man.
and fear comes in, because it's like you can't say anything against them. You know, their word is golden. Some scriptures that come to mind that are used to enforce control is Psalm 105:15, touch not my anointed. This refers to Yasharel as people, not leaders, being untouchable.
Right.
And a lot of these leaders and pastors feel like they're untouchable.
Well, you can't say nothing to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen to
Yeah. And it becomes a form of worship.
I was about to say something.
The people have such a loyalty that it becomes a form of worship of the said spiritual mother and father that people take up for them, even if they are preaching the wrong word or saying something or doing something that is abusive to their people.
Right. It's really wild. It's like you look at, I'm just going to say it. It's like what we see right now in the news with one of the well-known prophets that's in trouble with the IRS and stuff for deception.
Yeah.
Is basically what the charge was and stuff. And it's like, but this person is supposed to be an anointed man or woman of God, but you were deceiving.
Yeah.
What was due to Caesar.
Yes.
You want to be biblical about it. Mashiach said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar.
Absolutely.
But you're being deceptive in what you given Caesar, and Caesar caught you. And so now, what do you do?
Guilty.
And this person's supposed to be covering people. Has a following and people that go to his church and that he quote unquote covers. How does that affect the people that he's supposed to call covering?
Wait a minute.
That means you are a part of that agreement and part of that deception.
Wow. That's deep. That's deep. And that's the reason why you can't say another human being is to be your covering, because you're literally entrusting your faith, your life, livelihood and stuff into that person. Because I see people who do that. I have seen people who actually will say that they're praying and all this kind of stuff, but really essentially their pastor is the one that has the final say or the last word of, or they're the one that convinces them as to what they should actually do. So really you didn't put your trust in Yah.
Right, you sure didn't.
You put your trust in that person whom you said is your covering. Another scripture they use is Hebrews 13:17, where it talks to submit to leaders. Leaders must give an account. And then lastly, 1 Samuel 15:23, where it talks about rebellion and disobedience to Yah, not questioning your leaders. And I think this is a big one because many people that are in these sorts of environments, they don't question the leader because, first of all, they're not educated in the Bible enough for themselves.
That's right.
They don't really know the word
and
for
they
themselves.
plan for you not to be educated like that because they teach you what they want you to know.
Come on.
And a lot of it is teaching to be submissive unto the leader.
Yeah.
So if you start to reading it for yourself, you back into what the Catholic Church used to do. When the Catholic Church said, no, I'll read the Bible. What the father of the church was the one that would read the Bible to the parishioners, and the parishioners didn't own Bibles. And so that was all of a system of control to give everybody in control, because like, I can't have you go and read this by yourself. This is why the Catholic Church has 73 books in their Bible, while the Christian Church has 66. Make that make sense.
Come on.
Because they don't let their people go out and read that and stuff. It's like, yeah, as a Catholic, you know one, do you take a Bible to church with you? Yeah. No, Messianic Catholics probably do, but the regular Catholics, no, the Roman Catholics, no, they don't care. They wait for the father to
studying to be priest or
unless
something
they
like
study
that.
to be priest or something like that. That's the whole thing. But one of the things too about these two verses of scripture that you brought here that brought back to my remembrance is someone that's been in the news. The beginning part of last year was David E. Taylor and stuff, and how he was basically doing what these two scriptures are talking about. You know, telling his people to submit to him, but he wasn't giving an account to them. He was controlling them and what they do, all the way down to the point of controlling when they eat and stuff. You need to everybody need to get $6,000 a day in the call center. Yeah. Else you ain't eating. Well, why can't I eat?
Yeah, that's cultish behavior.
Who's gonna keep me from eating? My wife can't keep me from eating. So it's like, I'm telling you, that stuff is that right there alone, I think, was what an eye opener to a lot of people. Just how much the prophetic ministry and Christianity has gone into this place of where they're actually still controlling people with the word to submit to a leader that's not even spiritual. Yeah. You know,
I think it also shows that this stuff is still going on, because one of the biggest ones that came to light was that cult when all the people drank that Kool-Aid.
Oh yeah, I was just
and
watching
they
that the other
died.
day. Yeah, I was just
I
watching
don't
that
remember what
documentary.
year that
Jonestown.
happened.
Yeah,
But it's showing that is another level of that. Like what you're talking about with David Taylor. It's like, okay, people are still being controlled because of this person who they think is a prophet or whatever, and is manifesting these fake miracles, and then they're entrusting them, and then they begin to start calling them spiritual father. Which, how different is that now from the Catholic Church, where you're calling the priest father when the word clearly says call no man father, and then now you're going into Protestant Christianity and beginning to call the pastor or whomever your spiritual father. How different is that?
Right.
It's the same thing. This is the reason why the word says don't do that, because now you're entrusting a different part of yourself to them. And in many cases, the spiritual parents take on an actual parental role and make it like these are their real children.
Right. And keeping them from going to visit their actual family. I've seen situations where people are so tied to their spiritual leader to the point that they call them mom and dad, and they don't even go let them see their biological parents.
Yeah.
Even if one's a death in the family, you supposed to be here with me and stuff. You don't let the dead take care of the dead and stuff.
Yeah, because they're so
like,
submissive to them.
And it's like that to me is all kind of wickedness with that. It's like you've replaced this person from who the Father had birthed you in this earth and stuff. And it's, to me, this is like one of the things. It's I don't understand how people are just so how they fall victim to this
gullible
stuff. Yeah.
It's all about the work of the church. Like you said, the reason why they'll give those excuses is because, like, oh, maybe we got this pastor's anniversary coming up, or we got this big conference, and because you've already devoted so much of yourself to the man and woman of God, the man and woman of God.
Man. D and man.
Yeah. The reason why you end up ostracizing yourself really from your family and things and isolating yourself is because you're so into what you're doing for this church. You're so into what needs to be done, and being there all the time. For every you can't miss one
service.
Was actually had someone I was counseling a while back who literally, that was an issue for a ministry she was going to, is that they felt some type of way if she missed a Bible study. She couldn't miss a Bible study. She couldn't miss a Sunday. Like, they couldn't go on vacation. No, actually, I know two people that were like this.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, but there was a person that I was counseling, and they were saying, yeah, it was bad because they would talk about you from the pulpit, like if you wasn't there,
like
one
you
Sunday,
wasn't there,
yeah. So it's terrible how much control it is actually happening within these churches because the people are giving the control to them. But again, it goes back to the Catholic Church. This is exactly what the Catholic Church was doing. This is exactly how they were controlling their members. They preyed on the people who were illiterate.
Yep.
Was not able to read the word. They didn't even have Bibles. And one of the reasons for the Protestant Reformations, the Protestant reformers, was to give access to like poor people and stuff like that, to be able to, so they would translate the Bible in their languages, so that they can get the word for themselves. But it goes back to what? The shepherding movement.
The shepherding movement.
And a lot of people don't realize that's where the covering doctrine comes from. So let's talk about that shepherding movement.
Yeah, so the separating movement was also called the discipleship movement. Emerged in the early 1970s. I think you talked about this on your podcast I think we talked about it last season too, in season 1 and stuff. But it peaked in 1974 to 1980. That's about time me and her were born and stuff. So, and it received a lot of public backlash and declined in the early 1980s.
Yeah.
Why was that decline? Well, although the name faded, its ideas never disappeared. They were absorbed into the charismatic and evangelical church culture.
Yep. Yeah.
So this is where we see a lot of this stuff where I've even heard this saying, it goes like the whole thing, well, who's greater, Paul or Barnabas, right? And this is where we start to say this person's my covering, and being accountable to this one person and stuff. To me, it's really amazing that a lot of the people that I know today, I'm just speaking on local, not national term, on local realm of where I reside, a lot of the pastors and preachers that are my age don't even understand this.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so I think I mentioned this to you before, is how a lot of them are all running this one little clique because they're all connected. They all come out of this one church and they all became pastors themselves, but they're still all connected to this one leader. He's now passed on, but they're all connected to this one thing, and they only deal with people that become from that same group. And it's like, oh, so you won't accept me because I wasn't born here.
Wow. And
You
that's exactly like what the fellowship was that I mentioned on the last episode with Bishop Paul Morton and the Full Gospel Fellowship, because you had all of these different to me, it was almost like fraternity and sorority where you have all these different chapters, right? But you have all of these different regions of people, and you're like, you're over this region and that region, and then all these group of churches come together. But the people that come preach at your church for your conferences or whatever are all a part of that fellowship.
Yeah, like
because they only deal with the people that's in that.
It's like the St. John District Association here in Austin. It's the exact same thing. It's like that district goes all the way from Temple, Waco area, all the way down to San Antonio, and there's hundreds of churches in this thing, and they all to come together in July every year. Now I'm kind of curious how that's going to work this year because the church burned down that they used to meet at and stuff, but that's how that worked. So it's like everybody that was associated in that association went to each other and preached that on different conferences or whatever, if they had a conference, or let's say a church annual, because that's kind of what they call it, an annual or something like that, staying within this one thing. And I remember in particularly one year I went to, I think it was there like on a Resurrection Sunday, one of my friends had a gospel artist come to their church on that Sunday. I think it might have been CC Winans of Mississippi Mass had came to their church to sing on that Sunday, and I went to go help with their production crew. And I remember we had breakfast that morning at our church for the men, because the men always cook breakfast that Resurrection Sunday. And I remember one of the deacons is passed on, asked me, was I leaving the church because I went to this other church's service to help them with their production. And I was like, no. He was like, well, your covering's here. And I'm like, I didn't understand that back then. But basically, in the sense, you were basically rebuking me because I went to go help another church with something, and you said that my covering is here, that we're covering you. You need to be here with us, meaning I can't go out and help anybody else. Which back then I was still helping people in various different churches, and a lot of gospel concerts and stuff. I would help out because that's how we operated. But I realized it was very cliquish even then, even within their same association. We were all part of the same association. Even within the association, it was still cliquish. Right. Like, oh, I rock with this pastor, but I don't rock with this pastor, but we all part of the same association. Right. And so, because they over there and we over here. And sometimes they be right across the street from one another and they don't even fellowship. Because you holding on to your people like that, you get mad when they go visit that church. I mean, I never understood that. Like, I thought we were all part of the same body, just different parts.
Nope. Not accurate. You know why?
Why?
Because they don't preach the kingdom.
There you go. Nail on the head.
They don't preach the kingdom. And that's the problem. It's literally, like you said, it's cliquish. And then you always have this head honcho that's at the top. So like with the Full Gospel Association, it was Bishop Paul Morton. And then I think it went on to this other bishop, but I don't even know if they're still, I'm pretty sure they're still in still meeting and gathering and things like that. But I don't really follow it anymore. But they would always meet in Atlanta every year. And so there's a lot that goes in with the covering doctrine, because one of the phrases that you'll hear is like every pastor needs a pastor type of thing. You hear that kind of that talk. And like we said in the introduction, whenever spiritual abuse happens, one of the first things is who you're covering or who's they're covering, where they come from, who's their people or whatever.
I remember something that happened some years ago, I think with one of our associates and stuff that was going to a school in Georgia or something like that. And they had mentioned your name, and it was like, I don't know her or her husband, but they've seen us before, right? But because we don't run in them circles, they didn't know us. They didn't know us spiritually. Yeah. But here we are, you wonder why your people are getting stronger in this particular area, because they're learning from us in particular as just being a spiritual leader to them, but not being like that they call a covering and stuff. But now they have a conflict, because now it's like, well, my pastor didn't know you. I known him ever since he was yay high to a tadpole. So how do you sit there and say you don't? And I thought about, oh wait, because I don't run in circles with you. I'm not part of that covering clique that you under, like who your pastor and stuff like that. It's like I don't subscribe to that. So you can see it to be dangerous or whatever, if you want to say, because I'm bringing truth to it. But it's like those things are really real because, it's just one of them things where we here in the black church holds on to that very heavily. Yeah. White churches not so much, or evangelical churches don't really hold on to too much. Yeah. But the black church in general, they hold on to it. It's bad. It's really bad. It's like a slave mentality. Bingo. That's it right there. Slave mentality.
What was the guy? The black is it called a slaver? Mm-hmm. The one that would like keep everybody in
round
line,
up the black slaves.
A slave too?
Yeah, the slaver. Yeah.
Yeah. It's that's what it's like. It's literally like that. It's like, what is the purpose of this? Just to show that you have all of these people who listen to you, that you have all of these members or all these associations or churches that are connected and under you. That is not what this is supposed to be about.
So not.
So you got all these hundreds of thousands of people who are most likely heathens because the word that you're teaching is not even the kingdom. Mm-hmm. And all you're teaching them to do is to be submissive to the order or the law that you have set forth.
Mm-hmm. Which is a social gospel.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so the key figures for this movement, for the shepherding movement, they're called the Fort Lauderdale Five. The movement originated from these 5 influential charismatic leaders based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida: Bob Mumford, Derek Prince, Don Basham, Charles Simpson, and Ern Baxter. They were widely respected teachers, authors, and conference speakers, and collectively they taught what became known as personal shepherding. So these are the people who were responsible mostly for the shepherding movement, in which they felt that everybody needed to have a pastor or a shepherd or whatever. When before this movement, as you know, we have other movements like the Word of Faith movement that we talked about previously, and the one where there was all of these miracle signs and wonders happening when you have like the Azusa Street miracles and things like that. And so my take on it is that, people were going to these tent meetings probably before getting saved, getting filled with the Holy Spirit. And maybe they were starting to see that there were people who needed to be stewarded better in the gifts and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how they came up with this. But what ended up happening was a lot of spiritual abuse came from it. Mm-hmm. A lot of spiritual abuse. And they actually, I think Bob Mumford actually denounced it and he came out with a letter. And you can probably go look that up today. He wrote a letter basically saying that he didn't mean for it to go to those links, and that it was a lot of spiritual abuse happened and people were really broken from it. Just a lot of damage was done. Something that probably would never get admitted by modern day pastors.
Probably not. But I can kind of see now where some of the stuff has come up more frequently now. I know in areas that we're in is through trauma. Mm-hmm. Okay, case in point. Let's say there's a pastor that goes through something traumatic, a loss of a family member, relative, several members in the church at one particular time, right? Where you never had a covering per se. Okay, you might have had some people that were pastors that you hung out with and stuff or talked to and regular stuff. But now you make this position where you need as a pastor, you've gone through this stuff, you got counseling. Now you need a pastor to help you through this time period. And this is where we start running into this stuff, because now you have a pastor who has dealt with something traumatic, right? Mm-hmm. That now sees his own weaknesses of being inferior, that he needs a covering. Right. And you now bring that in. So he's my pastor now, and stuff like that. I'm a pastor. It's not bad for me to realize that I need a pastor, right? Right. And it's like, you probably just need a therapist. Probably don't need a pastor. Probably just need a therapist.
Literally, as you were explaining that's the first thing that came to my mind. Like, you're going through stuff and now you need a pastor. I'm thinking,
you don't need a pastor. You probably just need to go see a therapist. It's just honest and stuff, because I know for the short time that we did pastor, there's a weight that comes on someone, a man or woman of God, that actually is like shepherding people. There's a weight that comes on you that you just need some way to get it out. And sometimes it's not going to be through another pastor. Right. You might associate yourself and talk with them and everything like that, but sometimes you do need a therapist, because there is a burden. I can only imagine pastors during the pandemic having to do funerals. I have friends that work in the funeral industry, and they were doing 8 funerals in a week. That's 8 to 10, sometimes 15 in 1 week. that's a lot to happen and stuff for you not to have a therapist, but you weren't to say, oh, I need a pastor. I mean, yeah, we put things in the wrong basket.
I think a really good example of that too is like we had a few years ago a prominent pastor in this region who had a lot of churches connected to him all over the U.S. and in other countries. And he passed away, and the ministry that I was affiliated with was under him, under their covering. And then when he passed away, it was kind of like this, okay, we need to vet who's going to be our new covering. And I'm thinking, why?
Remember when I asked you that? I was like, why?
Why are y'all looking for somebody like that's the thing that irritates me, because of the fact that if you are in, this is something that I did appreciate. I was telling you that Apostle Pagani, he said on one interview that he did try, like, because he was all about that every apostle pastor thing. But there was one interview that he did where he said, well, to be truthful, people in prison don't have a church. They don't have a pastor or set pastor they go to. So everybody's not going to have a covering. So what happens to those people? Are you saying because they don't have a covering, they're not going to be able to
they can't
hear
preach
from
the word,
the Father, or they're not going to get a blessing, or they can't preach the word, things like that, because they use it as a mechanism of control to say you can't go out and preach the gospel as Yah told you to do. First of all, he told all of us to do that. You can't go out and do that unless you have a covering that you've come from.
Wow. That brings back something I remember in my childhood when I lived in Alabama. We had this one guy. He was the block drunk. He was the drunk that was always on the block. This block was like a little area where corner stores down the street from our house, and everybody, there was a nightclub, a boxing gym, barbershop. It was right there in our black community and stuff. And there was a lot of drunks and drug addicts that were in this area. I never get the guy's name, but I remember he was a really big, dark skinned guy. But he's always drunk all the time. But every now and again, you can catch him in a very lucid moment where he's speaking like real truth and stuff. And I remember him yelling at somebody else about the Bible, and he was like, you all fool because you think that man could get you into heaven. He said, you just need to sit down and read it for yourself. Now I'm like 13 years old hearing this in the church. And I'm like, this guy's drunk all the time. But I watched how people treated him every time he came into their church on Sunday. They rush him right out. He would come in, might smell like alcohol. He was clear-minded though, because he'd been drinking for 5 days straight and come right into the church, and they would rush him right back out. And I remember asking one of the elders one time, I was like, why do they always push him? Well, the Bible says you shouldn't be drunk. I'm like, but he wasn't drunk. He smelled like liquor. That don't mean you drunk. I mean, you probably just drank so much and stuff. But come to find out, our church wasn't the only church that was doing that. There was quite a few churches in the area that was kicking him out every time he come in. And really, they didn't want to really disciple him nor teach him anything.
Wow.
But then I found out later, he actually probably knew more Bible than they did.
Probably did, because after being kicked out so many times, you get a hold of the Bible, you're like, well, let me just see if I can figure it out for myself. Let me see if I can study and learn.
But this was the problem that I ran into later before I moved out of there in 91, I think 91, 92, before we left there and went to Virginia. We had a pastor who was a distant cousin of mine. His name was Donald Pugh. Came from Chicago. Came down there. He became our new pastor after our founding pastor passed away at like 88 or something like that. He became the pastor. And he had a past. He wasn't afraid about his past, right? He would teach the kids, you don't have to do this. You change your life and everything like that. I remember one particular sermon, he preached a sermon where he had talked about where he was a drunk and everything like that. And the Father spoke to him and told him to get up, lead us behind, and go preach the word. And he did that. And what happened that very next week, within 2 weeks, they voted him out of the pastor.
Oh, wow.
They voted him out as a pastor because they said we can't have a pastor that's a drunk or that's been a drunk or been a gambler. And I'm like, I was highly upset.
Basically,
I was highly upset because that was a distant cousin of mine. First of all, and I thought there was nothing wrong with the message because he talked about redemption, how the Father changed his heart, changed his mind, how he changed his wicked ways. But you were so highly minded that you could not have a pastor who had a past like that.
Yeah, because you think a saint is a saint.
Right.
Like that.
But the previous pastor you had was stealing money out the church that he created. But still, you ain't gonna say nothing about that. But you feel like you have to have a perfect thing.
Yep.
And we're at this point now, we're seeing all these pastors are not perfect. Some of them are going to jail. Some of them turn themselves in for having sexual misconduct with young parishioners and stuff.
Yeah.
And all these things are happening, but you still are looking for this covering. It's like, I don't. He gave you something to guide you. Hold on to that.
Come on. And just like going back to what I was talking about this particular pastor who, after that, pastor died, they were looking for another covering. It's kind of like, okay, but you're already a pastor now.
Right.
Like, you're already, and you've been in this thing for some years. Your church is established.
Sound word.
Why are you trying to vet other people to see if they can be your covering? I mean, flying out, going to meet with different people and stuff. It's weird.
Yes.
Okay. It's really weird. Just do what the Father told you to do. In some ways, it makes me also feel like there's this validation piece.
Yeah.
Like you're doing it because you want to be validated by another man.
And I think, like, speaking like that situation too, is like, you have a sound enough word to carry forward, right? Why would you want to attach yourself to something else that's going to basically change what you've been doing?
Absolutely.
So now you're going to end up, it's like changing the seed in the middle of the harvest, middle of the sowing season, right? You change the type of seed you're sowing because the person who gave you that seed ain't here no more. So now you change it, you plant something up. Now you got two different things growing in the field. Now you got people confused because now they're coming up in two different seasons. You don't know what is what and stuff because you're. It's like, to me, it doesn't make sense. Like, why would you go seek that? Carry on. Like, to me, it's like, for example, did he have a covering? Did his covering have a covering?
Right.
If he was leading covering all these churches, did he physically himself have another covering that was over him? Probably not. So why do you feel that you need to have it? That, to me, it's always bothered me like that. It's like you want to put yourself in an order, and I see this more so now acceptable amongst pastors who used to be in the military because they are used to chain of command.
Yeah.
Chain of command is how they let this system come out into the church to where, well, I got to have a commander over me. I got to have a covering over me and stuff. And it's like, yeah, but are they really actually covering you?
Ooh. Yeah.
Do they pick up the phone and call you and talk to you personally? Or do only when you come to their fellowship they talk to you?
And when you give your money
annual
above,
fee for the
not
year.
just the tithes and offering, but the money above the tithes and offering.
Yeah, that
Right.
to me, it's wild.
So how covering doctrine enables spiritual abuse? Well, there's some common patterns that we want to just put out here. Abuse is reframed as correction. That's a big one.
Yep.
Control framed as love. Silence is framed as submission, and fear is framed as order. Now, the abuse reframed as correction is a big one because they will use scripture, against you or to try to coerce you or manipulate you into doing something. Kind of like when we talked about on the Mammon in the pulpits episode, where we talked about them coercing them to do something by giving a certain seed or something like that. And so that is a form of control. And then they'll use a scripture to give correction, or they're always going to try to use a scripture. And that's the sad part, because
very sad part right
again, it's sorcery and it's witchcraft. So you're using the word for evil. You're using the word for manipulation. So yeah, it's reframed as correction, even though it's really spiritual abuse, because you got out of hand, you got out of line, you didn't obey, or you didn't do this. And in many cases where I've seen it it's like the unsaid thing, because it's not like these people just come out and say in the open, like, now that I'm your covering or whatever, you got to obey me at all times. They don't just come out and say that, but it is
because if they did that, then people would probably run from the jump,
right?
And stuff.
They don't come out and say that, but it's expected. And the way that you know that it's expected is because when you don't do it, or when you go the other way or whatever, they will either come to you with a correction, or they'll give you the silent treatment or the cold shoulder.
Ooh,
where they see you and they don't say nothing, they don't speak to you or don't say nothing to you. And that's when you get in yourself and you're like, wait, did I do something wrong? Now you're going and you're repenting and crying out to God because you think that you did something wrong. Really, it's them condemning you.
Yep. I've had that happen to me. I've had that
abuse.
happen to me before, and basically told if I got to go do this, what the Father told me to do, then I can't be a member no more and stuff. And gave me the cold shoulder. I'm like, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
Like, to me, nothing has changed, but to you, you think something has changed. You think that my mindset has changed about this work here. No, I'm still about this work here. It's just that the Father has given me something to do that I have to be obedient about. We talked about it in episode 2 episodes ago about the obedience part and stuff. And it's like at that point, you give me a cold shoulder, but I think that what they didn't expect me was I lived by myself. I can go days without saying a word. It makes me no difference. Like you trying to ice me out. Trust me, you probably break first before me because I could be stone cold, not in a bad way, but if I want to like not talk to you, I can go a whole 3 months and not say a word. To the point that you gonna end up breaking down. Oh, what's the problem? Well, you know what the problem is. Think what you did 3 months ago. And it's like, it's.
So I've seen that happen, and they prey more so on females. I know that they prey on there because we're more
highly emotional,
and so it's kind of like, oh, what did I do wrong or whatever. So now you're second guessing yourself. You're crying. You're trying to figure out how you can get back in their good graces, not in the Father's good graces, but in their good graces.
Oh, you know what? You can leave your husband. You can come with us, but you don't have to hold on to him. You can. You don't have to listen to him. Witchcraft. But now you bring witchcraft. Now you cause a division in the house because they know the woman is more susceptible to submit and follow a leader, a covering, than the husband is because the husband's going to see it for what it is. No, that ain't right. And I ain't going there no more. You can go, but I ain't going no more.
That's a big issue when you see it start to break up marriages because maybe the woman is listening to what the covering says or the pastor says when really the husband is the woman's covering. When you go around your covering in your own home to the one that's in the church, you have an issue because now you're causing division in that marriage when that's not supposed to be something that the pastor is supposed to overrule.
Right.
So,
boom, bingo.
The financial and loyalty trap. Blessings are tied to staying. Finances. Oh, that's a big one.
That's
I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah,
finances threatened if you leave. Sowing tied to access and loyalty is valued over truth. That blessing tied to staying is a big one too, because as we talked about before, they try to make it like the only reason why you're prospering and you're being blessed is because you're connected to this church. Or you're connected to, since we're talking about covering, or you're connected to the man and woman of God or the person who is supposed to be covering you. So you feel like you're getting that blessing because of that.
That's crazy. Yeah. It's like as if, what was that? We had a couple that they left, they left the ministry or something like last year and the pastor gave all their tithes and offering back. Like,
offered to. Yeah. They offered to.
It's like, but okay, so what are you trying to do with this? It's like, are you trying to curse me with what I gave it out of good heart and spirit?
Right.
You're trying to give it back to me because now I'm saying I'm moving on. Now you're trying to give it back to me. I think like that's another form of control and stuff. It's like, oh, you want to break all ties with me. I just gave that out of the goodness of my heart.
Exactly.
But now you want to return it back to me like as if
that's weird.
I'm cursed.
That's really weird.
Right. I mean, and we've seen what happened twice with people. It's like, I didn't ever understand it, but blessing tied to staying. Wow. That's,
And the other thing too with that is when they do see someone who is really passionate about the word, who has a lot of potential and maybe even is very influential in the ministry, but they're starting to like question or pull back and stuff, they'll offer them things like other positions in the church to try to make them stay.
Yeah.
I've seen that many times over. Oh, we want to make you a minister, or we want to make you an elder, or we're going to do this or do that or whatever to try to make them stay, to appease them because they're trying to just have that grip, that control, and reel them back in. And it's not right.
That's really wicked.
So money becomes proof of submission, which we talked about in the previous episode. And also kingdom truth versus religious control. Let's talk about that.
Ooh, kingdom truth versus religious control. So we have Yahushua's model for that would be in John 13, where he washed feet, where he actually washed. Now I know I've been a member of a church where the pastor did wash our feet. She washed the minister's feet and stuff like that. Which to me was a great example of not just being a servant, but also submitting to the authority above them and stuff, right? So they're taking that part. And so another one was what basically what I just said, authority serves and stuff.
Yeah.
And truth is liberates people, and then accountability protects the flock.
Come
and
on.
stuff. So if you happen to be in a fellowship that has no accountability, I'll be questioning some things.
Yeah.
Some serious things and stuff.
Absolutely.
And especially where the authority does not serve. But they want to be served, but they never serve.
Come on.
Oh, I'm served because I delivered the word. But there's still more to that than just that, right? You say we need to go to feed the homeless. The pastor needs to be the first one out in front to serve. It's like one of the things I learned back when I was working in manufacturing like over 25 years ago. I worked with a guy that was had the military and stuff, and I was kind of like not used to his leadership style and stuff. But then he told me one day why he does what he does. He said, well, I learned something in the military. Is like a good leader is one who's not afraid to get in front and tell people, come on. The bad leaders are the ones that point and say, go over there and do that, because they're not willing to do it themselves. He said, how can you tell somebody to go over here and take this hill if you're not willing to be in front?
Come on.
And so, and then later on, I wish I still had it. He gave me a photo of these men that were pulling this rock, and the leader was in the front saying, "Come on, guys, just pull a little longer, pull a little longer." And then you had another guy with the men were struggling to pull the rock because he was behind him, telling them, pull the rock," and he was the extra weight on the back of the rock.
Wow.
And I was like, that is such a perfect example of that. It said, because and that's kind of like my whole leadership style is like that too. I'm not going to tell somebody to do something I'm not willing to do it myself.
Right.
So,
and that's the danger of when we talk about covering in a lot of these cases. Again, they are calling these people their spiritual parents, spiritual mother, spiritual father. That's the danger in that too.
Oh yeah.
Because when you think about parents in the natural and you being the child of the parent, in the natural, you do serve your parents, not the other way around. So that is the danger in that, because the shepherd is supposed to be shepherding and serving just like Yahusha served the people, but you're doing it backwards.
You're supposed to
you
protect
want the people
flock,
to come, not
sacrifice the flock.
Whoa, that was a big one. You're supposed to protect the flock, not sacrifice the flock, and that's what they do. And also they hide behind, again, like going back to what I was saying earlier about how they'll see somebody with potential and they'll give them different positions and stuff. They ride on that. Like if you have somebody that is maybe a very good preacher, speaker, or even accurate in prophecy, you don't want that person to go off by themselves and do their own. You need it to be in your name. You need it to be, like that's my son or daughter that does that, and they're affiliated with this ministry. They can't have their ministry on their own. That's another red flag.
Right.
When they don't want them to launch out and have their own ministry and do it outside of them, but they want to be known for the people that like develop them or whatever. That's a bad thing.
I've seen that one way too much too.
Yeah.
That's sad stuff. But there's these things where people are gonna really get to a place of really understanding this is when they start getting into a situation where even their loyalties will be questioned because the leader has some sort of inadequacies that they haven't yet dealt with, right? They've dealt with abandonment issues, people leaving the church and stuff, right? And so when they start seeing these type of things where it's more directed to them, because I've seen this happen several times and stuff, and I've always kind of questioned is like, what made it so different between this person and that person? It's because the one that they really wanted to submit was the one that never questioned their actions. But the ones that question, you need to go. You just go. Just you push them out the church, right? But the one that just say, okay, yeah. But the moment they said, wait a minute now, something's off with this. Now you got a problem on your hands and stuff, because they don't really understand that, there's an accountability that takes place in serving. Like, I need to be the example for the leaders and stuff. Why would I shepherd someone and not show up for things that I'm expecting them to show up for, right? That's one thing. Another thing is where you're more so telling people, this is what's mandated, this is what's required for you to do this. It goes as far as put it in the church bylaws. You do this, but you don't never see the pastor, the kids, pastor wife You'll never see them do none of this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? But they hold everybody else to this standard.
Absolutely.
And stuff, but you supposed to be covering. It's like, how am I supposed to trust you to cover me when you're never even here when I'm here? You know, it's like that kind of stuff there always baffled me. It's like, why would you do that if they're never there?
Yeah.
I remember there was a church here years ago like that where the pastor did this, and you know, and it was tying them into a cult. I guess you could say that, because he asked all the members to sell their houses and give the money to the church so they could build a church in another city. And they did it, and it messed up the entire city. There's a lot of churches that couldn't get funding after this because this church let their church go into foreclosure because the covering said you need to do this, and all y'all did this.
Help us.
And me is like, I think that's the most wicked example of someone who says, I'm covering you, but you're not protecting them.
My Lord.
Yeah.
Well, the covering doctrine didn't protect the sheep, as we can tell from what we've been talking about, but it protected the wolves.
Oh, yeah.
This particular shepherding movement is what it's all about. It's about control. It's about fear. It's about silence. It's about trying to get a number of people, a number of churches, a number of amount of money into the churches, only to prop yourself up.
Right.
For the most part, and say that you're covering people when really all you're doing is the only thing you can do as a human being is pray for this person, intercede for this person, and maybe call them somebody that you're accountable to, but not that you cover. The only one that can cover is Yah.
The only one.
The only one. When you look up the definition for covering, the actual word covering, you will know that there's no human being that can do that for another human being.
Yeah, there's no mediator.
Yeah. Oh, come on.
No
in closing, if your spiritual safety depends on silence, submission, and sowing, it's not a covering. That's captivity.
And the whole purpose of this episode was to set the captives free.
Come on. So I ask you again, as we said in the beginning, is it covering or control? Which is this episode. Name of this episode, is it covering or control? And it's very much control.
Wow. And that's a good one.
Just do what Yahusha said.
That's just what he said.
Preach the word.
Preach the word. In season, out of season.
Come on.
The kingdom, nothing else.
Nothing else.
We ain't not no Christian Louis Vuitton or no Rolls Royce preaching, no social justice preaching. Just preach the kingdom. And all will be well.
Right. Well, we hope you have enjoyed this series. We called it Church. Our 9 parts. If you've missed some of them, please go back to the beginning of the series and watch that. We also want to tell you about the Remnant Global Institute, which we have just launched. That is our school. And we want you to go over to our website and check it out, remnantgi.org, and see what we have to offer there. We're offering the bachelor's degree.
That's right.
Of leadership, biblical leadership. And we want you to check that out. We'll be doing some certificate courses later on down the road. But definitely go on over to that website and check it out. It's not going to take you 4 years. It's not going to take you 3 years. It's not even going to take you 2 years.
And you ain't going to be in debt.
And you're not going to be in debt. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't want to put people in debt right now. It's hard to lead people when you're in debt.
Come on.
I'm just saying.
That's good.
It's good, babe. So anyways, if you want some more teaching, Bible studies and everything like that nature, just a regular community of the Remnant, check us out at Remnant Community. You can click on the link in the description of this video and every video on Spirit of Truth Ministries. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this video if you have not yet done so. And follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for TKO Podcasts. And so that's what we're doing. More work. So yeah, I love it. So anyways, that's going to be it for this week, y'all. Yeah, so next week, I don't know what the topic of the next series is going to be, but make sure you tune in next week. On the Kingdom Order, we'll have another great episode. Y'all have a good one. God bless.
Stronger in you.